too. Ooh, what we doing there? Mm. Mm.
University library?
Yep.
Looking over the shoulder. They're about to be really bored.
Well, no one can understand me here.
Oh, that's right. You're in Columbia. They're about to think you're part of the FBI investigation.
And no one knows that I'm not from here until I open my mouth.
Oh, right. That's funny. Okay. Well, let me throw it out to you guys first. Is there anything you guys would like to go over in any accounts talk about?
Disapprovals. Disapprovals have been the main topic of the week.
What have you been learning from that course about?
One thing that I just went over is that Facebook actually doesn't like to help people with disabled accounts, so don't check that when you're going through support. They
Really?
like to help. Yeah, do not check that. Check ad performance and delivery, then performance of my ad. Don't check that you have a disabled ad account.
Okay.
They don't like that, and like just things about the ad copy and stuff, like don't use excessive emojis, don't bold or cap the word free or anything or any word on ad or landing page, which HubSpot has. So I'm gonna go and comb through his stuff after going through this.
Don't capitalize the words free
or bold, yeah, or any word in particular. They don't want it to stand out. And always have it, and don't use the word free in like the ads. Use like no cost, and disclose that there is an offer at the end of the webinar. Because Facebook actually doesn't like webinars.
Sure, we knew that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some information that I think would be useful just to go through it, and then go through their funnels and ads and make sure there's a disclaimer on both the ad and the funnels. We've been using a small disclaimer on the landing page, but we should be using a bigger one, similar to Frank Kern's.
Okay. Can you summarize and maybe jot down that stuff? I'll help out. Me and Tony will help out on your accounts today.
Yeah, I am. I have a paper. I'm going to type it up and send it to you guys.
You're the best. Best. Yeah, you can focus on that and Hostway, and Tony and I can rock it with it. You can just come on the meeting with me and Tony later, or I don't think, did Tony invite you to the meeting with Gordon today?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. I'll probably do that like 5 minutes before, but yeah, cool. So we'll talk about some of Jordan's accounts and give you some action items to do in there, and then we'll do the same thing with Christina, and that'll free up Jordan's time to really focus on the ad account disabled and Hostway stuff. How far are you along with coming up with the Hostway stuff, Jordan?
I'm almost done. I just need to set up the Ever webinar, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay, let's definitely meet and talk about the copy for everything before we launch anything. Cool.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Tony, were you gonna say something? I think I cut you off.
No. You so I'm meeting with you and Jordan today, and you and Christina later, or just you and Jordan?
Let me see if I actually added you to that. I did. No, because I asked Christina to just send me. Let me add you to that one.
Okay.
Christina puts me 30 minutes before her next meeting because she knows I have a tendency to talk.
Well, that meeting, though, is all about our next meeting. So see what better time to strategize than right before we meet with the client.
It's fair.
Because we already have a strategy. She just needs to get on board with us.
Okay. Refreshing creatives. How we utilize new assets from the clients that come in, whether it's images or videos that they come in and we want to test it out. The first things first, if an ad set is with a KPI, I would recommend not touching it, especially at the budgets that we're at right now. I think if we were spending, Jared, what's the highest you're spending right now on ad set, Noodly?
A specific ad set?
Yeah.
Just under 1,500.
Okay. I would even go as far as to say if we're at $150, that's when we can start adding a new ad into the ad set to refresh the creative. But here's why I'm saying that is because when we're at $150, we can see the trend better. Right now with such low budgets at like $5 to $10 a day, we see immediately, is it out of KPI or is it in KPI? But with a low budget, but with a high budget, we start to see, oh, it's climbing and it's about to hit our threshold. And that's when we insert new ads to make it trend back down. Make sense? But when we're at low budgets, we want to either just turn the ad set off and relaunch it, or if the ad set's in KPI, just leave that on, don't touch that, but find new audiences that are relative to that audience and launch out with the new creative. So for example, we have a campaign running for Helene in the Instagram account, and it's going well. There are ad sets in there that are definitely within KPI, but we got this video in that seems like it would perform really well. Well, I would recommend just leave everything that's on in KPI, but then launch out to 10 new audiences, and then use that video if anything is outside of KPI, not at the ad level, but at the ad set level. If it's outside of KPI at the ad set level, then shut that off, duplicate it, and create it with the new video. Now, does anyone have any pushback on that? Does anyone think like that maybe doesn't make sense, or I have a better alternative? Because I'm open to that. But I realize, and this is not just one person, it's a few people. When I said like refreshing the creative, I definitely wasn't clear on what I meant by that. So that's what I mean. It's like, don't turn off anything that's working. Please don't. Or don't like add anything in that's working at a low budget. Leave those alone, but find new audiences and launch it out there. Or when things are out of KPI, turn those off and relaunch with the new creative. Cool?
Yeah. If I can say something real quick, yeah.
Please.
What I tend to see, he's got an ad set that's at 1,000, another ad set that's at 1,500. And what I look for is as that starts to kind of go up, it'll plateau of kind of where it's at. And then we start to scale, and I watch to see that those numbers stay within that kind of scale mode. When it starts to go, and I haven't touched anything, I haven't scaled it, I haven't done, for a couple of days, and I start to see it start to sag. That's kind of my key indicator to say, like, okay, I'm going to try. And during that time, I've been testing creative on a smaller budget to kind of say, like, okay, this one's kind of cooking. Then I take that and I put it in and cross my fingers and hope that just kind of using that up. So that way you can keep like lookalike audiences alive for a long time, because they tend to do really well, and you give sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes months, and it's kind of based on how well you treat it. You got to just pat it and encourage it along and feed it new copy and all that kind of stuff.
So what you're saying is, don't change it out and this is for high budget ad sets. Don't change it out, or I guess, high budget ad sets, because even campaign budget optimization still falls under a high budget ad set. Don't change it out when it's plateaued. Change it out when it starts to trend down. Right?
For me, that's what I do. Yeah.
Yes, I agree, Jared, because I have Pete and Heather Reese, which they're high budget, like Noodly is, and it's the same thing. If you start when it's plateaued, you're like, oh, it's not moving, but you don't dare because it's still working, and it's like, okay, if it drops off, and then like a day and a half later, it jumped back up, so I was like, oh, thank God I didn't turn that off.
And that's another reason why we don't optimize based on a day view. And I know you guys don't optimize based on like yesterday, but like also just looking at like day to day. Like I always group at the least 4 days together. If not, like for most of our clients, 30 days is fine because they have longer end funnels. That doesn't necessarily apply to direct to sale, but it certainly applies like with people that are doing a webinar with an email sequence follow up, but at least a 4-day view.
Yeah, usually I don't shut anything off, but when it starts to show that it's going, the CPL is going up, then I won't shut it off because I still want more data and see if it's actually going to spike. But I still will launch out new creative alongside the current creative.
So you'll horizontal scale so that it'll lower the overall KPI with a fresh creative.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just in case that old creative does spike, then I could just shut that off. But we have the new creative that's currently working.
That's super proactive. I love it. So Christina, what's your strategy right now for like Pete and Heather Reese? They have a campaign, budget optimized campaign that's running at like, what do you have, like $1,000 for one of them, right? Something super high like that.
3.
What's that?
3,000. 5-day crash.
Say it again.
The 5-day crash
Yeah.
course is $3,000 a day.
Have you gotten to the point when,
Yeah, because if I don't, he pings me and tells me I didn't spend enough money.
awesome. Have you gotten to the point where you need to, oh, it's my computer. I'm sorry, guys.
I was gonna say I didn't know if it was me or you. I was just gonna ask if anybody else saw you freezing.
I was waiting for the thing that says your connection is unstable. There, it didn't happen on mine. So what is your strategy or thoughts about when those campaigns, are you optimizing heavily at the ad set level for that? When you're adding new creatives, are you just kind of duplicating to add them in, or are you inserting into the actual ads sets themselves?
I'm inserting into the actual ad sets so that I can keep them separated by what interest they go in. But I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm doing 5 of them at campaign budget optimization, and only one of the ad sets is at ad set level. So the other ones are all at campaign budget optimization. So I add it into there and kind of watch it, but usually I'll know if something's not performing. Like that's what I did to change up some of them. You know, he was so set on we have our audiences dialed in, but they really didn't. They had waste. I left those when I first started, but then tested out those new audiences, the Joanna Gaines and the Fixer Upper and some of those other ones. And when I saw that those took right off and the other ones weren't, then I just shut those off.
So what you're saying is when you have audiences that you know are winners, that you want to work, you say, I'm going to leave you on because I know that you're winners, but I'm going to add ads into it. But when we're in the testing audience phase, we're like, well, we don't really know if these produce sale. We don't really know if these are going to be have longevity. That's when we turn them off and we create new audiences. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Cool. And I think that's an encouragement for us to get our audiences really dialed in, to really have that figured out, like which audiences are going to work. And when we know that, it's like, okay, we know that Amy Porterfield works for this thing. We just need to add ad sets in or add ads in until it works. What do you guys think about that? Do you like that, or do you prefer duplicating it out?
I have a question. You've said this 2 times, and this might be off subject, about the duplication side of things. And I haven't been, like, I understand what you're saying. Like, I understand the general rule, but I want to understand the why side, if that makes sense. So you're saying, yeah, in the day, and correct me if maybe I'm just hearing this wrong, but like, yeah, like you launch an ad set for $20 and it's performing. And so you say, all right, I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to put it in for 100. Just, you know, because in one day I got 4 sales off this, you know, $40 thing. I'm going to duplicate and get 100 and see if I can get more.
Yeah.
You're saying no.
I'm saying no. I'm saying
Yeah, great.
Facebook has recently said that increasing the budget is the same as the duplication. I don't personally know if that's the right way to do things.
Explain that to me. Increasing the budget is the same as duplicating, meaning you're
For Facebook's algorithm. So if you're at $20 a day and you increase it to $40 a day,
right.
on the back end for the algorithm, Facebook is saying, well, if you just double the budget, we do the same thing in our algorithm to show that audience the ad as if you had duplicated out the ad to another $20 a day.
Yeah, but from my understanding, like, let's say, yeah, I put $20 in and it gets off, 7 sales or something like that, or leads or whatever we're looking for. At that point, that ad set has gotten smarter, right? It's received data to kind of say, hey, I know what is working. And so by doubling that budget, it has a little bit more data than a fresh ad set.
So you're saying you should increase the budget. You should increase the budget rather than duplicating it out by that.
By that logic, yes. But then there's also the feel of, like, sometimes you say, hey, you barely tap into an audience and you realize, man, this audience is converting. And if I just scale at a 20% every other day type thing, or what if I just drop it in at 200 and hope to see that the audience itself is what's converting and not necessarily Facebook's algorithm? You know what I mean?
And that's where I want us to get to ultimately. Like, the hacks and the tricks is tough if we're relying on that. Like, but you're right. So maybe we should be more focused on the audience than necessarily, because I'm not sure I believe that Facebook truly optimizes at the ad set level. They'll say, oh, there's the learning phase. I'm kind of under the school of thought, like, I think it's just the pixel. Like, I think that a lot of that is distracting. So because Facebook doesn't want us to have a lot of ad sets. It would prefer that we said, Amy Porterfield, $1,000, and then we just left that audience alone, because it doesn't want to do the thinking. It doesn't want us to be splitting stuff out and trying to get around the system. It wants us to just speak to that audience. And that's not easy, because that's not what gets us fast results, guys. But that might be the long-term game that we need to do. Like what you're doing in Doodly and what Pete and Heather Reese are doing, or what Christina is doing in Pete and Heather Reese's account, where she's taking the tried and true audiences and just adding in new creative and new messaging to see if it sticks. Like, that might be the way.
While scaling.
While scaling, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I might probably be more unique, where my guy said spend as much as you can as fast as you can.
Right.
That's probably not as typical, because that's where I'm at. I'm trying to, like, every day I'm getting ping saying, numbers look good. He's at 5K a day right now. He wants to keep going up.
And that is the problem for those of us that are restricted to $300 a day, because we do know that Facebook gives priority to the first 24 hours. And so we kind of are in this rat race where we're just launching to get those, like, lower end results that our clients are requiring us to get. Find stuff that sticks. And so we don't really have time and budget to have an ad set at $25 a day that's out of KPI for 3 days that we're launching new creative into. We kind of just say, hey, let's just relaunch at $5 a day, get those initial leads in there, and hope they're good quality. Now, the problem with that is it's a never-ending cycle, it feels like. And I'm still working it out, because there's a lot of audiences out there. There's a lot of variations out there. We're finding new ways to find good audiences every day. But all of this, guys, like, if we get our messaging right, if we get our copy strong, like, the less we have to worry about this. We still have to deal with it, but the less we will have to worry about it. So that's just an encouragement to you guys to, like, work with me on this stuff. Like, help me with these headlines and these above the fold copies and the body copy to resonate with the audience, because that's ultimately what's going to seal the deal for us.
Yeah. I agree. And I don't know, the messing with the body copy and, like, learning about the copy is kind of fun. So
I agree too with that. Like, you're talking to people that way. We get so removed sometimes with optimization. We forget it's just. It's like, yeah, I love to look at the click-through rate versus the link click-throughs. I love to look at the percentage on the landing page, but it always comes back, okay, well, what do those metrics mean? It means that if someone's reading it and they're excited, and then they get to the landing page and they go, oh, this isn't what I clicked over for, and they fail. Like, we got to remember there's people behind it. And I'm preaching to myself right now, by the way, like, because I force you guys to look at the numbers all the time, and I want to do a good job of also well, what does that mean? What does that mean for our copy? what does that mean for the world, guys?
Yeah, and I think it's starting to click after I watched a few of those videos. I need to go back. Like I listen to them in the background, but I need to go back and take notes. And it's all starting to click. Like, oh, this means these numbers mean that this part of the copy isn't working, or it's not resonating with this audience. So it's finally starting to connect.
Yeah, and that course, I love it. I also kind of wish it didn't come out because it was stuff that we were always talking about, like at the higher level stuff. But like nobody wanted to put that stuff out in the course. We were like, keep this stuff secret. So like the stuff I'm talking about, like the CTRs and all that, or even the cost per impressions, like that stuff we would always talk about. But we were like, okay, but don't actually share that with anyone. So even like I have to go on the podcast with Emily tomorrow to talk about sandboxing, and I'm like making an outline. And I'm like, not gonna talk about that. Not gonna talk about that. Not gonna talk about that.
Don't do it. I feel like sandboxing headline messaging, that's like the most control I've had over any ads of bringing down the cost per lead, I swear. Like over any testing, over any like narrowing, over any strategy that's like, has yet to fail.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't believe when we came on and there was like no system for split testing. And even like when I mentioned like, hey, headlines are really important, they were like, okay, like, I'm like, no, they're like, they're really important.
They're like, sure, Roger.
Sorry, Jordan. Everyone in the background like seems super interested in what's going on.
I know. I'm like up with the one dude on the left where he's like,
everyone's very peaceful.
Jordan got done talking, and I could tell all of us, our eyes were all shifting at that dude in the left. What Jordan say that again?
There's that one girl in the beginning too. She was just like side eye, like looking over.
Next time I'll go like to a corner or something.
this is Jordan's squad. I'm gonna hang out.
Got everything I need here. They have restaurants outside.
That must be so fun. I should come out and visit you.
That'd be so cool. I'm getting a new place pretty soon out here, so yeah. No, I'm still going back and forth between America. Like I'm gonna be in America for like a month or two, and then Colombia for like a month or two. Just not back and forth.
How much is a plane ticket for me to get out to Colombia?
A lot.
It depends where you go from. Like from Florida, I think it was like 300 round trip.
What? That's it?
From Florida, Roger. You have to go from Delaware.
Yeah, you're pretty far.
What airport should I fly into?
Medellin.
What?
Medellin.
That's cute that you think I would know how to spell that, but
I'll send that to you later.
I just
But yeah, when I move into the new place, it's like a 3-bedroom, so I'll have all that set up.
Perfect, got room for me too. Let's do it, Roger.
Hey!
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
No, team retreat. They were
Go to
gonna
co-working spaces.
and then they canceled it. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do one with my team. Let's go to Bosnia. Yes.
Yeah, only
That'd be really
1,500 per ticket.
Oh, you fancy.
Bougie.
It's more of like a third world country then.
Where's
That sounds-
You're in Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in Atlanta. Well, actually, I stay about 30 minutes out of the city of Atlanta in like a little town called Lithonia. But yeah, it's all Atlanta. There's a lot of little places around here, little cities that's all considered Atlanta, but they all have their own names.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Jared, you're in northern San Diego or southern Santa Barbara? Like, where's Temecula?
It is in between. So Los Angeles, San Diego, Temecula. I'm in the middle.
Sweet. So, like, that could, like, function as a San Diego trip?
Oh yeah, I'm probably 40 minutes from San Diego.
Oh, sweet. A lot of
It's in wine country, so if you guys are drinkers, this is where to be.
No. Go look at the USA Today poll. In our area here, the Finger Lakes region beat out your area for best wine region in the
Oh
US.
no,
wow.
that's subjective.
She had those facts on hand.
That's true. I guess I found my wine drink over here.
The only difference being San Diego has a lot of like really dope digital marketing conferences that I think I could justify us all flying out to. So
There you go. Perfect. I have 5 bedrooms, but I have 4 kids. So sorry.
I think I'm at a place in my life where I could get a hotel room.
Maybe.
we were talking about like with the retreat, they were like, "Oh, should we like bunk anybody together?" And I'm like, "Listen, you can assign me some, but I'm in a place in my life where I'm going to be getting my own room."
That's funny.
Is that even happening, right? That's canceled?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening at this company. I shouldn't say it like that, but every time I meet with Kara or senior, it's like, okay, we have so much to talk about. And I'm just like, close the computer. I want to get back to the accounts. This is what I love to do. All right, guys. Well, let me let you guys go, and I'll see you all on the big huddle. Take
Roger,
care.
last thing,
Oh, yeah.
Nicolette, where did you get to work on that email?
Yeah, that's, God, I got so backed up last night.
That's okay, with your account shutdowns.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. No, and I owe Christina a response with Helene as well. So I'm going to block off. I have 30 minutes between 12 and 1. I'm going to block that time off and do that. Okay, Helene and Nicolette. Yeah, Nicolette, basically, we're going to kind of just recommend that she pauses and just focuses on this launch. And Helene, the leads have been even coming down to like $4 yesterday, right? Like
They
that.
have, and I upped everything so that we're spending the full budget.
Yeah, and I think how many ad sets have we turned off that had produced a lead? You know, I did. That was a random question.
None of them. We didn't have to. Any ad set
Really?
that has produced a lead is still on.
Within
We didn't
KPI.
have to. Within KPI.
And we just need to scale that.
And that's what I did today.
Yeah.
We'll be at the full $2,100 spend if I, hopefully that's what I did today. So, and I let her know. I let her know that I used the video, and I let her know that we were at full budget spend and that we really should start to see the leads really rocket.
Right. So we'll use that not as because we don't need to bring the cost down, but we will need to bring the cost down as we increase the budget. So we'll use that as a creative refresher when we need to. Cool. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate you, and I do got to jump off so I can prepare for the meeting. See ya.